There is talk of a possible rail merger between Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, south of the border. This would create a big carrier connecting east and west coasts. And it would actually combine the largest and smallest of the U.S. major freight railroads. Let's get more from Jeff Kauffman, partner in transportation and logistics equity research at Vertical Research Partners. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
One thing that leaps to mind here is, would the regulators allow this? Because we saw the CP Kansas City merger not so long ago. And I think people were saying at the time, well, this is going to be the last rail merger.
I think that was very much the view. When we last tuned in about 2 years ago, there was a different chairman heading up the Surface Transportation Board who really felt that rails needed to work together in partnership as opposed to merge. There was an exception for Kansas City, and the regulators allowed CP to acquire it, but there was definitely a message 2 years ago that service is not where it needs to be. We'd like the rails to seek partnerships as opposed to transcontinental. Fast forward, though, we've had a regime change in Washington. We've had a change in the leadership of the Surface Transportation Board. We now have 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and President Trump will be allowed to nominate a 5th person to the board that could potentially sway that weighting. So I think the view is what was once thought as a 0 probability of additional consolidation has become a non-zero probability. And it feels like Union Pacific is thinking of testing that.
CSX could be in the mix here, or you say there's possibly would be more logical for CSX to go after Norfolk?
Well, unfortunately, it was Norfolk and Union Pacific that were caught at the Coldplay concert, I guess. Investors figured out there were discussions going on between the two. On paper, CSX appears to be the stronger fit with Union Pacific between the two.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I think there would be a lot of challenge with the CSX Norfolk merger because there would be so much overlap. They are the 2 rails in the east. What the regulators would be more open to would be an end-to-end east-west merger. So it would be Burlington or Union Pacific in the west, and then CSX or Norfolk Southern in the east.
There's talk here, though. UNP, though, and Norfolk are both big in the chemical industry. There would be great synergies there.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's CSX.
Oh,
that
I
is
see.
the
Sorry.
larger chemical railroad in the. Oh, that's okay. I get confused too. CSX and Union Pacific would have a dominant chemical franchise. I guess one of the questions you've got to ask yourself, though, is the regulators are very keen on maintaining competition and have been very vocal about pushing open access in future transactions and if there's poor service. So we think no doubt if there is a merger presented to the regulators, there will probably be a remedy of open access to some of the other customers, shippers, rails. And maybe one of the risks of Union Pacific and CSX partnering up would be you would have this very large chemicals franchise that would be subject to more open access, perhaps with Norfolk being more of an intermodal carrier and Union Pacific being the smaller intermodal carrier in the West. Maybe that's less problematic, but I don't really know the reason. I just know Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern, who had been working together on the new Mexico to Southeast U.S. Service that UP rolled out, have begun to have exploratory merger discussions.
That's interesting. So I think I have it straight now. So Union Pacific and CSX are both big carriers of chemicals. Does that include energy like oil and LPG, or just sulfur, or what kind of stuff?
Well, I think a broad variety of chemicals, and then beyond chemicals, there's also construction materials and autos, which CSX has a larger franchise in the Southeast with the materials franchise too. So there's actually a fair amount of integration between Union Pacific being the larger auto carrier in the West, Union Pacific being the larger materials carrier, the larger chemicals carrier in the West. And that actually matches very well with CSX and the way their traffic is set up. So Norfolk would be a little bit more of a diversification combination between the two because it is stronger in some of the other areas.
And yeah, both Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern confirming that they're in advanced merger talks. Am I right in thinking that previous mergers in the States, rail mergers, did cause snarls in scheduling? I mean, it's enormously complex. And for one of the problems was that road junctions were blocked by trains just sitting there because of timetabling problems.
Well, if you go back historically, rail mergers have not been clean, and it was the failures to maintain service during the integrations of the 1990s that caused the merger moratorium in 2001. In particular, it was CSX and Norfolk splitting up a railroad called Conrail, and there were a lot of challenges with splitting up a railroad that was never meant to be split. And then Union Pacific, which acquired Southern Pacific, and there were a lot of service backups on that railroad. We haven't seen those issues with the Canadian National acquisition of Illinois Central, and we haven't seen it with CP's acquisition of KSU. You know, a couple challenges here and there with IT cutover, but overall, I think the Canadian Pacific's done a fairly decent job of maintaining fluidity and service with that smaller integration.